So today I have with me Gabby Wonder, who is the Boobless Wonder on Instagram, and the reason I want to interview Gabby is because she decided not to have a reconstruction after her mastectomy, which I think is absolutely fascinating, and I know not a lot of women choose that or are given that option, so I'm going to have a talk to you about that. And also the way you found out you had a BRCA mutation is just mind-blowing. So stay tuned to the end because we're going to have a little talk about that. But first of all, why did you decide not to have a reconstruction?
I think there's kind of three reasons why I decided not to. I kind of went with my gut feeling initially was that I did not want one. The reason being, I am very risk averse. My husband years ago nicknamed me RA for risk averse.
Nice.
So,
RA Wonder.
RA Wonder. I read a lot about different reconstructions, different options, and what I could do. And what kept coming up for me was that with reconstruction there was more risk of having to have further operations.
Yeah, which there are.
Yeah, it's unavoidable. And not everybody has to, and the majority of people don't have to. But
even with implants, every 10 years you're supposed to have them replaced, so
yeah,
even if there's no complications, there's that part of it. Exactly.
So, and then when I went to see my surgeon, because I'm quite small framed, she said that there was no possibility of me having a DF flap reconstruction where they use the tissue from your tummy.
Yeah.
So
Same
it was
me.
Yeah, exactly. So it was either going to be an LD flap reconstruction where they use your shoulder tissue and your muscle, tunnel it through your armpits and fashion a breast. That was possible, but she said that the word she used was the results would be disappointing without putting an implant behind it to boost the result, because again, I'm quite small. There wasn't enough tissue to make a decent sized breast on its own. So
you don't want to be left with something disappointing.
Well, exactly. Going through major surgery where you've got surgery on your back and your front, how do people even sleep? You know, it would be a lot to go through to then be left with something that didn't even necessarily look like anything like what I had before. So my
Did you have big boobs before?
Not huge, like quite reasonable size, but after my second child, after I breastfed him for 6 months, they completely disappeared. Basically, I was quite deflated, so I had quite a good bouncy chest before children, and actually even after my first child, they went back fairly to normal, but after the second child they had definitely changed significantly.
It's quite amazing as well, because your boobs do change over the years anyway, so it's just whatever you look like, whatever option you have, it's adjusting to what the change is.
Exactly. And I guess also I'd already adjusted quite a lot to the fact that they'd changed after breastfeeding the second child. So I was already
do it again.
Yeah, exactly. So I didn't, basically my options were implants with LD reconstruction on top, or just implants. And I didn't want implants because I didn't want further operations. I didn't want the risk of them rotating or rupturing. Small as it may be, it's still a risk.
It's still an anxiety for me. I do certain things and I'm like, I shouldn't.
Do you?
Well, like mainly hula hooping, like you still think about it.
Yeah,
you're not just living your life, you do worry about stuff happening.
It feels like you need to protect that area, I guess. And also I know it's a tiny risk, I think it's 1 in 25,000, but there's a tiny risk of breast implant associated cancer, which I know is teeny. For me to put something then back into my body that carried even a tiny minuscule risk, for me that felt like I would not be comfortable with it, and I'd worry about it.
And it isn't natural. You have got a foreign, that's what they call it, a foreign body with underneath your skin. So
exactly. So my feeling was that I would not be comfortable with implants.
So what did your surgeons say about that? Because they don't often offer not to have a reconstruction. Were they happy with you? Did they try and convince you otherwise? It's
quite interesting, isn't it? Because I went into that first surgical appointment saying I don't think I want a reconstruction, so I didn't even give her a chance really to offer it to me. I just said I kind of went in with the mindset of I don't think I want one, let's see if you can convince me otherwise.
You're amazing.
So I saw the breast nurse as well, I think they were concerned about the psychological impact.
Let's talk about that then.
Yeah. Okay.
How's it been?
Fine.
I was saying earlier, like before we started filming, I don't want to sound insulting in any way, but I think a lot of women who have mastectomies, their biggest fear is that it doesn't work, the reconstruction doesn't work, and they're left flat. That was the biggest fear for me, that I would wake up and they would say, it's all gone wrong, you're going to not have anything. So how is it psychologically? How is it not to have
boobs?
Boobs or boobs.
Boobs, it's I personally, and I know it's very different for lots of different people, but I personally am completely fine with it. I think I did a lot of thinking about it and preparing myself mentally before I went into it. So because I knew from the outset that I thought I might want to have a flat chest as opposed to a reconstruction, I spent a lot of time like squashing my boobs down and looking in the mirror and seeing and seeing what it looked like. So literally every morning I get
putting things on Instagram like, I'm just flattening my chest today. I remember.
Exactly, and just seeing what it looks like in the mirror, and kind of trying to prepare myself for what my body shape might look like, what it might look like in clothes.
I did that, but I had saggy boobs, so I used to just go like this and pull them up and be like, this is what they're going to look like.
Amazing. Bonus. I think the breast nurse, when I saw her, she was, I think, probably quite concerned about the potential impact, and she actually, the line that stuck with me that she said to me was, your breasts are your femininity, aren't they? And I kind of thought, no, they're not. But I know that for lots of people they are. But for me, it's just part of what makes me feminine. There's lots of things that make me feminine.
And also, like you wouldn't know now. Like,
no,
you just,
exactly.
It's when you're naked, really. That's really the only time.
Yeah, and
that
even
you would notice.
I mean, I do wear very tight, skinny-fitting vest tops, so people do know.
Oh yeah.
And people
it's
do
just because you're wearing a baggy jumper.
Yeah, I'm wearing a baggy jumper, so you can't tell. Yes. Thank you. But I'd still feel girly. I still feel like myself.
Yeah.
I don't feel.
Our boobs should not define us.
They don't.
They shouldn't define our femininity. There is so much more about being a woman than our boobs, and that's such an important thing, I think, for everybody to know. If you're not able to have a reconstruction, then it's not the end of your femininity.
No, it's not. It's not the end of being a woman.
No.
It's not like people are going to mistake you for being a man. And I think what I was really surprised by actually when I woke up from the operation was I was expecting to feel like something was missing. Yes. I expected to wake up and feel like this space and this emptiness, but actually I just felt totally complete.
I was wondering that, like, do you feel a bit naked, like you've forgotten something? Or
Initially, actually, you know what, the nakedness feeling comes purely from not wearing a bra.
Yeah.
So I feel a bit naked because I haven't got a bra on initially. But it's so easy. It's so easy to put a t-shirt on. Yeah. It's amazing. What a bonus.
So let's talk recovery. What was that like?
Recovery was okay. So it was a day case operation. So they turned up and said, let's go at about 11:45. I think I came round about 3 o'clock. So the operation took about 2 hours. Okay. Would have been quicker, but she had a trainee with her. Was ready for discharge by 6.
Wow.
Yeah. And walked out of there at 7:30. My husband had to put the kids to bed.
Oh my gosh.
So I was a bit later.
And then just back on mum duties in the morning.
Definitely not. So in terms of like, I mean, I was amazed at the lack of pain. Yeah. I expected to be in agony when I woke up, and there was nothing.
That is incredible.
Did you have that?
I had pain if I moved, but not. Okay. Not if I was sitting still, so it was less painful than I thought it would be. Because
as the days wore on, definitely it got more uncomfortable in terms of like bruising and soreness and just stiffness. I got very stiff, but that was partly because I was being so careful and wasn't using my arms, and I wasn't lifting. I was textbook, I didn't do anything. So I've got 2 small children, which is one of my big fears going into this. And it's one of the reasons why not reconstructing was a good option for me, because the recovery is so much faster.
How long before mum duties?
So I was not prepared to pick up my baby, who at that point was just over a year old. I didn't pick him up until fully 4 weeks after the operation.
That must be one of the hardest.
It was hard.
For them as well, because they don't know.
Yeah, you can't, whereas he was 3 at the time, you could explain it to him, and I could explain to him what was going on, and he understood that he couldn't hug me, but my littlest obviously didn't get it. But my husband took 2 weeks off work, good. So he had the children full time for 2 weeks, and I was able to sleep off for naps when I needed them because I was exhausted.
You do need naps.
Yeah.
Yeah, you really
Afternoon
need naps.
I'm
still doing them 8 months later.
Good choice. And I was very concerned about developing seromas as well, which is the fluid build up as your body's healing. I didn't have any drains.
That is interesting. A lot of people do not like drains.
Yeah.
They're all right, but you didn't have drains.
I didn't have drains, which was one of my fears about the surgery, because and this is the third reason why I didn't want reconstruction, I don't like medical stuff.
Yeah.
I am really, really squeamish.
Just don't ever have to go back into that hospital
Exactly.
for anything around.
Exactly. If I can limit the number of blood tests and operations and anything sharp and medical coming near my skin, like, I feel like that would be an advantage. Yeah, so the fact that my surgeon suggested that I might not have to have drains was
good for you.
Exciting for me. But I trusted my surgeon on this one. She said if during the operation she felt like I was creating a lot of fluid, she would put them in. But she didn't, and
they monitored that.
They monitored it, and I didn't have a seroma. And then I was very careful when I got home to not do anything that might aggravate the sites, that might cause fluid buildup. Apart from, I did get the occasional headbutt from my baby, which is hard to avoid.
You can't avoid that. So, just to finish, this is fascinating, how you found out you had BRCA.
Yeah, okay.
I think I cried a little bit when you told me.
So, my mum died a long time ago. She died when I was 19. I'm 35 now, and she never had a BRCA test. It was it's a long time ago.
I don't even know if they would be doing them.
No, it was 20 years ago that she was diagnosed, and I just don't think they were. So I had always had this horrible feeling that there might be something hereditary, but because she was one of 5 but all the other 4 were brothers, there was no other breast cancer in the family. And whenever I asked at the because I had a few breast lumps and had to go and get them checked out, and every time I asked a consultant, they said, without your mother alive, I'm afraid we can't test you. We need to know if she had a BRCA mutation first.
So frustrating.
Yeah, I now know that I could have gone and had a private test and found out if I had a mutation. If I'd known that, I think I'd have done it 10 years ago. But I didn't know that at the time. I thought they had to have just my mum. And they do for the NHS to make it worthwhile, I guess. So so I couldn't have a BRCA test. And then she said, I'm now going to say something that you might not have been prepared for. And she said, we've developed technology in the last, literally in the last 12 months at the time, that can genetically test deceased cancer patients.
I just can't believe
I know. So, although I will say, my first thought, this is quite comical. My first thought was, do they mean exhumation? Like, are they going to dig up my mum? But then the problem was my mum wasn't buried. My mum was cremated.
I don't think.
So all these thoughts are going through my head, and like, I'm going to have to tell her she can't do this. Like, we don't have any of my mum's left to test. But then she explained that every cancer patient, when they have a tumour removed, or my mum had a lumpectomy, so they take a little bit of that tissue and they store it in pathology.
They keep it
indefinitely.
How long? 19 years.
So it had been, I think it had been 17 years by the time. So
they tested a part of your mum.
Of my mum.
17 years after she died.
Yeah. It's crazy. So my mum had this thing. My mum really didn't obviously want to die, and she didn't want to leave me and my brother. My brother was only 15, and she had this thing that she was always going to be around to protect us no matter what. And I kind of felt like, there's this little tiny bit of my mum that I had no idea was still on Earth. That was still on Earth, and she was there protecting me. And
it's just unbelievable. She is still helping you.
Yeah, and she would be so thrilled to know that she had been able to basically saved my life. I mean, the NHS as well. The NHS has saved my life. The scientists who work out genetic testing have saved my life, but my mum as well.
But the little bit of your mum left on Earth saved your life.
It is amazing. So and her test came back obviously positive. Here I am with no boobs.
With no boobs. So just to kind of summarise, what would you say to women if they're having this decision to have a reconstruction or not, or if they're absolutely terrified about not having a reconstruction? What kind of advice, parting words of wisdom would you give them from the other side?
Okay, I would say it's just not as bad as you think it's going to be. It's never as bad as you think it's going to be. I remember I was really quite nervous in the hospital getting changed. Before I went home, I took off my hospital gown and I walked into the bathroom and looked in the mirror and just saw my flat chest with its little white dressings across it, and looked to the side and thought, yeah, it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. I'm still me, and I think that's the main thing, is you're still you, no matter what. No matter what you end up with in terms of reconstruction or no reconstruction, you're still you, and you're still a woman, and you can have a load of fun finding out a new wardrobe.
That is so true. And going out without a bra on.
Yeah,
great.
I've had a right old eBay blitz. It's been amazing.
So, moral of the story is BRCA is a blessing in a way, because we know about it and we can save our lives.
100%.
And having a reconstruction, not having a reconstruction, whatever the case is, we're still us at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And life is still wonderful.
Yeah. The people who love us still love us for who we are.
So thank you so much. It's been so
you're
lovely.
welcome.
It's been really eye-opening for me. I'm blown over by all the women that I meet who have gone through this, and it's incredible hearing your story. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.